Welcome to today's installment of Conversations with Andres Ilves. With me today is Brigadier General in the Reserves, Yossi Kuperwasser, who's the head of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Israel, Palestine, always in the news these days, lots going on, and it changes day to day. I want to go back to October 7th, 2023. And I want to start off by asking you, with your expertise and background in intelligence and so on, what went wrong? Was there something that Israel should have seen?
Well, first of all, a lot of things went wrong. Both in the intelligence and on the operational readiness and the general approach to the Gazan challenge. All of that was wrong, deeply wrong. In intelligence, I think that the basic problem was there was this assumption that, yes, Hamas is basically looking for ways to destroy Israel and get rid of the Jews here. But now they are in a period where they are pretty weak, and following the Guardian of the Wall operations 2 years earlier, they are unable to cause us any real harm, and they are now focused on making sure that they are going to stay in power and that they are going to be able to improve the living conditions of the Gaza population. And this was a complete misunderstanding of Hamas. And this led to this complacency when it comes to early warning signs that were coming from Gaza. It's not that we didn't know what was going on. We knew almost everything. We didn't know the date and the exact way they're going to act, although we did have the plan. We didn't know the exact way they're going to act. And we ignored that because we said to ourselves, well, they are deterred, they are weak. This is not what they're up to right now. So everything we see, we can give it an explanation. And this is something that is very common in intelligence, that you have these biases, the confirmation bias above everything else. Whatever comes in, if it's in line with what you think about the enemy, you attribute to it a lot of importance. Whatever comes in and it's in contradiction with what you think about the enemy, you say, no, that is not important. It's just nuisance and noise. And that's exactly what happened to all the people. The problem was that there was a groupthink. Everybody believed in that. There was no one. Well, there was maybe one or two exceptions, but in very low level that nobody heard, nobody paid any attention to. And this was a terrible intelligence mistake that in all walks of intelligence was so predominant that the ability to change their point of view during the night when the information, the decisive information came in was totally impossible. And I always quote my successor, the successor of my successor of my successor of my successor, who said, to expect me to change my worldview about Hamas in the last hours before the attack is impossible. I couldn't make it. And even though I saw the information, I couldn't change my mind. I was convinced that Hamas is deterred. And it's painful because, you know, it could have been totally different. And now there's a question of are these people unfit for carrying this job? Maybe, I don't know. It's maybe it's something that has to do with the people that did it. Maybe it's something that has to do with the culture of intelligence, not enough openness, not enough understanding that there are these biases and you have to be aware of them and you have to take them into account when you make an assessment. Maybe it's the structure of the intelligence that was moving towards operational intelligence on the expense of strategic intelligence and early warning intelligence. We had many reasons for this failure, but the results are very clear. The results are very clear. It's terrible mistake that led to such strategic repercussions that's beyond imagination. The people that were involved in that when you speak with them and you listen to them, they understand they made a mistake. They don't run away from responsibility and even blame. But in my mind, they don't yet understand how deep and unbelievable their mistake was.
Even now.
Even now, just a couple of days ago, there was a leak of a conversation between the former head of the intelligence, commander of the intelligence at the time, General Khalifa, who spoke about what happened to him. And he repeatedly said, I'm responsible, I'm to blame. He said the right things. But you don't get the impression that he understands how deep and how terrible the repercussions were of this mistake. It's okay, I made a terrible mistake. I'm to blame. Let's move on. It's I resigned. That's the way I translated my blame and responsibility to real action. So it's not that I didn't stick to my chair, but he didn't manage to convince anybody. I think that he fully understands what happened.
Does that mean it can happen again?
Definitely, it can happen again. Definitely, it can happen. Actually, it did happen several times since October 7th. We had many strategic intelligence mistakes. So, for example, nobody thought that Assad is going to fall the way it fell, the way it failed, and many other small issues, smaller issues, but also of strategic importance, were not foreseen by the intelligence. Intelligence is a very problematic thing because to say something meaningful about the future is a very demanding mission, and human beings have difficulty in doing that. It's not in physics. In physics, you can say, okay, the sun is going to come up in the east tomorrow at 6:22. But to say that the terrorists are going to appear at 6:29, 3,000 of them in 60 places where they're going to cut the fence simultaneously. And some of them are going to come with hang gliders. Some of them are going to come from the sea. And it's you have to, as the 9/11 investigation committee said, you got to have the ability to imagine. The failure of imagination can cause a terrible result. And these people that were in place didn't have the capability to imagine.
What I'd ask then about that is that for many countries, there's going to be a security threat, but it's not always clear where it might come from. For example, you mentioned the 9/11 Commission. It clearly was not, well, perhaps one could have anticipated something similar happening, but that attack was less clear, the location and so on. For Israel, it is one of the countries in the world that has the clearest security threat, and the geography is small. The security threat can be pinpointed. So I am curious about how it can not be clear where it's going to come from. Then it's just a matter of the timing, because there shouldn't really be any surprises.
The intelligence wrote several papers, the same my replacement that I mentioned before. He wrote 3 papers to the government, warning about, giving them a strategic warning that because of the growing tensions inside Israel and because of many other reasons, the probability of some attack against Israel is growing considerably, and this is a strategic warning. It couldn't be it wasn't in a position to say on the 7th of October or anything like that, but it was a growing threat. But even he, in his papers, in those 3 papers he sent to the prime minister, said that the places where this can come from are the north, or from Iran, or from the Judea and Samaria area, not from Gaza. The only place he said that it's not going to happen from is Gaza. And by the way, wrote a paper on June 2023, 4 months before the war. And I said, yes, there is a chance of an attack, and it's not going to come from the north. It's not going to come from Iran. It's going to come from Gaza. And you should be aware of the fact that the terror attacks are going to come from Gaza. And they called for disarmament of Hamas. I said, let's initiate a military operation to disarm Hamas. I said, I know this is going to cost a lot of lives of soldiers. I know we don't have international legitimacy. I know we don't have even domestic legitimacy. We have to work on all of these things. And when we are ready to launch an attack against the Hamas in Gaza, in order to disarm them. Because I said, if we don't do that, what's going to happen is that the prices we are going to pay are going to be way bigger than those that we are going to pay if we launch an attack, preventive attack. And but the response I got from those who I sent the paper to was, what's the problem with you? Don't you know Hamas is deterred? No, Hamas is not deterred. Hamas is preparing an attack. And what I knew without having any sensitive information, these people could have known, because as I said, you have to imagine. You have to... I always, when I speak about this problem in intelligence, I quote Aristotle, who said that poetry, unlike history, is not saying what happened. And these people were too much involved in saying what happened. And it's about saying what should have happened. No, what should happen. And you got to be a poet. An intelligence person got to be a poet. You have to understand what has to happen, because the enemy is not going to tell you in advance, tomorrow I'm going to carry out an attack. It's going to make its utmost in order to deceive you.
So from a security perspective, what are the red lines for any post-war governance plan in Gaza? For example, there's a proposed plan that involves a Palestinian civilian government and an Arab-led security force. Does this satisfy Israel's security requirements?
I think what has to happen in Gaza is that we keep the contours of Gaza. We have to keep a presence in the Philadelphia corridor, separating Gaza from Egypt, to make sure that no arms are smuggled from there. Should keep control of the sea, to make sure that this is no maritime arms smuggling takes place. And we should take care of the perimeter that separates between Israel and Gaza, and make sure that everything that goes into Gaza is going through Israeli scrutiny, to make sure that no weapons come in. And we should, because all these efforts are going to be partially successful, we should also keep in our hands the responsibility for thwarting terrorism inside the Gaza Strip. And Hamas, on the other hand, should be totally removed from power and disarmed. And then Gazans can, once this is going to take a while before Gazans are going to be convinced that Hamas not only is disarmed and removed from power, but is not coming back. Once this is going to happen, then we shall be able to deliver the responsibility for Gaza to Palestinian hands. And they are probably going to be supported by the international community and by the moderate Arab states. That's fine with me. But first of all, we have to make sure that Hamas is disarmed and deprived from its capability to govern Gaza. And then wait a little bit so that the Gazans will understand that this is the new situation that will prevail in the future for a long time. Only then we can move forward towards having anybody else take responsibility for Gaza.
So what would that look like on the ground, a continued IDF presence, you're saying?
Yes, it's for I don't know how long exactly, but for a certain period of time, the IDF should be in charge. And then we can hand the responsibility for Gaza to Palestinians, together with international and Arab forces. So that's going to be the idea that we are going to do it without the problem in Israel, that we want to have a free lunch. That's I mean, I understand why people want to have free lunch. It's cheap and it's tasty, but it's difficult to get it. We want to see a new government in Gaza without making sure that we control the Gaza Strip really, and that this new government will come and take care of security business while we are out. It's a wishful thinking. I don't think it's going to happen. We know Hamas refuses to accept it. And if we don't end up with removing them from power by force, they are not going to volunteer to give up. Or at least they have to be convinced that we are going to remove them by force. That's the optimum. If they are convinced that we are going to remove them by force and they are ready to disarm before we actually do that, maybe this is going to be the best case scenario. But we cannot be assured that this is really going to happen. So today, a proposal attributed to the Egyptians that they are ready to take care of disarming Hamas. The Hamas will disarm and give them the arms. First do that, then let's find somebody who's going to take care of Gaza. What they want to do is to take care of Gaza, and they promise that Hamas is going to disarm. That's, I doubt, is going to happen.
So this transitional government that has been mooted of Samer Huleli kind of being a governor of Gaza and so on, you don't have put a lot of store in that?
Not at this point. Maybe in the future, if we are sure that Hamas was disarmed and this is out of power and is not coming back. Now the question is, who is the Palestinian guy that's going to take over as head of the administration, the Palestinian administration in Gaza? And all kinds of names can pop up at that point. Sami Khalaila is one of them, but he's probably not the only one. So one other issue is that we might think of regional government, not same person ruling over all of Gaza, but somebody ruling over the area of Rafah, somebody ruling over the area of Khan Yunis, somebody ruling over the area of the central refugee camps and Deir el-Balah, somebody ruling over the area of Gaza, and somebody ruling over the northern parts.
And who appoints
them? So that they would not have national aspirations.
And who would appoint them?
This international body that is going to work with them is going to appoint them. As long as they are not Hamas, they have no terrorist past, they can assume that it would have to be approved by us, but we don't want to appoint them.
You know, we talked about enemies, you mentioned Iran and so on. So can we talk a bit about Iran's proxies? Basically, the so-called ring of fire. Do you think that that's still Iran's strategy? Obviously, Iran's position has been weakened, but it's still present. And what do you see, especially after the 12-day war and what happened with Hezbollah and so on? Where do you think the Iranian threat and proxy threat now stands vis-a-vis Israel?
Well, basically, I don't think the Iranians right now have a strategy. They were under such a shock that it's very difficult for them to come up with a strategy. They work out of inertia. I mean, you see Larijani going to Lebanon trying to save Hezbollah from being disarmed. He knows that this is what is expected from him, but he understands that the situation with Hezbollah is totally different than what it was before the war. Same is the situation with Assad that is not there anymore, and the entire connection between Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon is shattered. And Assad was important from any other context, and he's not there anymore. And the militias in Iraq have stopped trying to harass Israel, and launching UAVs to attack it. And there's one place still standing, that is the Houthis in Yemen. That's nice, and the Iranians send them a lot of weapons. But all the rest is totally out of order. There can't be any strategy that is built on Hezbollah and Assad and other, even Hamas. Hamas is unable to really threaten Israel right now. So it's maybe once we withdraw, but at this point they can't. And And Iran itself is unable to actually resume the effort to equip itself with nuclear weapons. And even the missile production facilities are in bad shape. So it's the entire strategy is in shambles. So it's very hard to come up with a strategy. They still stick to the old what they remember from the old strategy, which is not necessarily relevant for today. And what we are seeing in Iran because of that is that gradually the reformists within the government are raising all kinds of new ideas. You know, there was a paper by Jawad Zarif this last few days about the need to adopt a new policy, a new strategy. Rouhani is speaking, the former president, speaking about the need to adopt a new strategy. They understand that right now they actually don't have a strategy, and the old one is irrelevant, and you got to come up with a new strategy. And the conservatives, hardliners, are very unhappy with that, but what do they offer? What do they propose? Especially as their policy leads to even harsher sanctions, and the Europeans are considering the snapback of the sanctions the UN sanctions that they can put back in place. And the Americans are putting harsher measures in place to make sure that Iran cannot export oil to China. And, and there is no water and no electricity. The situation in Iran is terrible. And that's why the so-called reformists ask for changes. Because the people understand that the hardliners' line is not doing any good. And it's a very interesting period in Iran. We had dreams about this leading to some sort of a reshuffling regime. It's not going to happen probably because the Iranians are too afraid to try and do something like that. But what we can expect is some changes within the regime. But moderates are going to have bigger say in what's going to happen, and bigger attention from the supreme leader, who may understand that there need to be a change. The litmus test for that is going to be whether they're going to stick to their demand that they are going to be allowed to enrich uranium in future agreements with the United States or IAEA, or whether they're going to give it up. If they're going to give it up, means that they have realized that they need to change the strategy. So far, they haven't done it.
So there's a possibility, people are saying, that Iranian weapons are now being smuggled to Lebanon via Iraq and Syria. You don't put much store in that?
No, it might be. We see the effort of Hezbollah to rearm and to regroup. And some weapons are probably being smuggled. But it's not the same magnitude of stream of weapons that we had in the past. Through Syria, where everything came and was moved to Hezbollah. It's much more difficult. And maybe some of it makes its way to Hezbollah, but it's not of the same stuff. And another thing that happened that changed the equation dramatically was the way of action of Israel in Lebanon. Before 7th of October, we were very cautious not to carry out any activities in Lebanon. If we wanted to thwart arms shipments from Iran to Hezbollah, we took action when they were still traveling in Syria. Today, we allow ourselves to, because of the agreement we have with Lebanon, to take action against any attempt of Hezbollah to rearm, especially to redeploy in the south. When we don't hesitate taking action. We already eliminated more than 250 activists of Hezbollah since the ceasefire. So we do not hesitate, and the fact that we had to eliminate all of these activists tells you a lot about how determined Hezbollah is to rearm and redeploy in the south. Most of those we took care of were Hezbollah operatives that were underway to the south or reached the south, in spite of the fact that according to the agreement they are not supposed to be there.
We live in a time of great change. Obviously, there's been this dramatic change in Syria. The situation, as you said, with Iran may have changed quite a bit in terms of the strength of the hardliners and, who knows, the longevity of the regime and so on. Where do you think this is all headed for Israel, with all the changes happening around it regionally, everything from the Abraham Accords to changes, as I mentioned, right next door in Syria and so on? How do you think Israel is going to cope with the changing security situation around it?
Well, Israel is under the impression that in order to free itself from the other challenges that it has to face, it has first to deal with Gaza. We have to finish the job in Gaza. We have to release the hostages that constitute an enormous burden on our ability to move to other places and to defeat Hamas and make sure that everybody in the region, especially every Palestinian, especially those Palestinians living in Gaza, knows that the 7th of October was a terrible mistake done by Hamas that distanced the Palestinians from having their national aspirations fulfilled, and that cost them a lot of pain. It already cost them a lot of pain, but they have to know that this was in vain. Because they're ready to pay a high price if they get something in return. They shouldn't get anything in return for this 7th of October massacre. So that's one thing that we have to finish. It's a job that has to be finished. Once we do that, I think that we can focus on translating the changes we have managed together with the Americans build in the region into better strategic situation for everybody in the Middle East. And for that, we can dream of all kinds of security arrangements with our neighbors that may later on be translated into some gradual normalization of relations with them, maybe ending up with diplomatic relationships. It can be done with Syria, it can be done with Lebanon. Of course, it can be done with the rest of the Gulf states that were not part of the Abraham Accord at the time, especially Saudi Arabia and Oman. And that's, I think, the direction that we should take once we finish the job in Gaza. And it's not only the Middle East, it's changes are happening around the globe. So it's, we'll see how they impact the Middle Eastern situation, because I don't know to what extent the efforts of Trump to bring about an end to the Ukraine-Russia war are going to be successful. But if he manages to do that, then the winds of peace might reach the Middle East, the wind of stability. And I hope so. I sincerely hope so. Anyhow, we all understand that the state of mind we were in until 7th of October, state of mind that, oh, what are we going to do about the Iranian threat? What are we going to do about the Iranian octopus? What are we going to do about all those proxies of Iran? What are we going to do about the Iranian nuclear project that is getting closer and closer to fruition? This was the state of mind of everybody in the Middle East, and especially in Israel, in the days preceding 7th of October. This is gone. And nothing new has yet emerged, but there's a good chance for us, once we finish the job in Gaza, to help the Middle East form a positive situation that is going to be translated into prosperity and peace. There's one element that we still have to deal with, and this is the Muslim Brotherhood beyond Gaza, because they still have their own mind about how the Middle East should look like. And we see it both in Syria. The new regime is an outspring of the Muslim Brotherhood, or the even harsher, more radical Islamists. And we see it with the Turkish leadership that is also very close to the Muslim Brotherhood. And we see it with Qatar, that is also supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. So there is a camp here that has a different view of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, many other Arab states, and Israel and the United States that seek stability and prosperity. this camp is not necessarily for stability and prosperity, and we shall have to see what's going to be done with them. But I hope we can co-opt them into this stability future, stable future that we have in mind.
So you mentioned finishing the job in Gaza. I want to ask you, it's clear that there are divisions in Israeli society about how to pursue that. Where do you think that's headed? Because it's not clear that there's unanimity about how to end the war in Gaza.
Well, unanimity and Israel are things that never go together. It's, we are divided, but we have a government, and they have to decide. And we see a lot of attempts to put pressure on the government, but the government is not really impressed by that. And yes, there are those who think that we should end the war now just in order to release the hostages and allow Hamas to stay in power, and some other day will come back to Hamas. The government doesn't think so, and the government calls the shots, and not the demonstrators wherever they are, and regardless of how much noise they make. That's the political system in Israel, where there are going to be elections in a year time, or maybe even shorter time. And we shall see who's going to win the elections. That's the most important thing. We have a system that allows us to take decisions and to implement them. And I guess it's going to work in the future as well. I think personally that allowing Hamas to stay in power is a mistake. We have already paid such a heavy price. Let's at least get what we want and remove Hamas from power and build an opportunity for the Palestinians too, to enjoy this new regional situation, and maybe under different leadership, with a different narrative, knowing that the narrative of destroying Israel and getting rid of it and replacing it with Palestine from the river to the sea is a dream that should remain only a dream. Once they have a leadership that understands that, we can move forward towards having peace with the Palestinians as well. And I hope that after we take care of Gaza, the people of the Middle East will understand that being captives by the Palestinian issue to prevent them from enjoying better stability, better prosperity, and peace with Israel, that this is going to be such a tremendous source of well-being for everybody around us is a mistake. The Palestinian issue cannot be solved tomorrow morning. This trend of countries recognizing a Palestinian state is not going to have any impact on the situation on the ground. The situation on the ground is going to stay the same. If at all, it's going to encourage radical Israelis to take counter steps that are going to make the situation even more complicated. So God knows what's going in the minds of people like Macron and Albanese and Khan in Canada and Starmer in the UK. What do they think? These people are really beyond my understanding. I understand they really are upset to see Palestinians suffering. Okay, but the tool they chose in order to show their unhappiness is really strange and just worsening the situation here.
Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.